So one of our objectives here today is that teachers will be able to unpack the standards and be able to present them in a student-friendly manner. And so on the web page here, at this time, if you hadn't already, under the read first, it told you that where the standards were in our first direction. There are the Georgia content area standards here, and you can choose any subject area that you want to look at. I would just have some standards in front of you to, sort of reference as we're going through the practice, because what we're going to do today is look at a standard, look at an element of it, break it down, look at the different parts of it, and create a student-friendly definition that you could do whole class as an introduction to your unit, sort of to establish purpose, to establish a direction, because students just like us want to know what they're learning, why they're learning it, and what the expectation is. And once you set that expectation, the students are going to rise to that occasion. So I'm going to use the mathematics standards today, third grade mathematics to be more specific. So when I click on the standard, it'll take me to this page, the Georgia Department of Education standards page. And so they break them up into K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, as many of you know. And so I'm going to go over to K5, and I'm going to go to the K5 standards, which I already have pulled up here. And many of us are prepared and know about the ELA standards. And I taught ELA for many years within the school system, and so this was something that was very familiar to me. If you asked me what was RI2, I could tell you what RI2 was, but if you went to one of my students and you asked, did Mr. Simon tell you what RI2 is, or what you're learning about today, the kids, some would, some wouldn't. And so I wanted to, when I got told I was moving to another grade level, take time to really make sure that the kids understood, because I can understand everything all day, but I'm not the one that in April is going to be taking a milestones test. It's the students, and I'm not saying that knowing the standard is going to improve their score, but establishing purpose and establishing relevance and giving them control in the learning is going to, in the long run, make a higher return. And so there's different parts and different elements of the standards. A lot of these are very simple. They're one standard, one strand, and then the further you get down here, like you're talking a standard, and then you've got element A, B, C, and D. It's the same in mathematics. It's the same in science. So this would be your topic, your main idea, what they should be able to do, and then they break it up into more specifics. And they do that because they want the teachers to understand the progression from first grade to second grade and from third to fourth, and to know that we're building on these standards. It's not just like one year we're hitting it, the next year we're not. They're progressional. And so over here I have my math standards I'm going to pull up. And this is where we're going to sort of talk about breaking down the standards. And I remember student teaching in Roopville. It was a great experience for this, specifically for this reason, because the teacher did a great job of making sure at the beginning of every unit that the students understood what was going on. And, I thought I would try it here and there, but really, the more I get into teaching, the more I see why she was doing it, and I thank her for the experience. And so we're going to be referencing the third grade math standards, and the big broad statement at the top basically says the relate area to the operations of multiplication and addition. And so the Georgia website had a great resource here. They had it for ELA, which was, I think, a 7th grade standard, and they broke down a science standard, and they broke down all these other standards. But I want to spend time talking about mathematics. It's the same general idea. And so our standard was relate the operations of multiplication to area. And so our element here says find the area of a rectangle with whole number side lengths by tiling it and show that the area is the same as it would be found by multiplying the side lengths. And so when we look at that, and as I turned to my third graders and I look at them and I go, and I read it, they sort of just give me these blank stares. And so we've got to break it down in a way. And I'm a visual learner, so I took my scented markers and I would put it on an anchor chart, and I would put my standard at the top, put my essential question second down, right underneath it. And so we would do things such as this. We would take a marker and I would say, okay, we're going to circle our nouns here. What is the person, place, or thing they want us to realize? And so in this element here that's under standard M3MD7, it's the word area and it's the word rectangle. And so we would say, okay, what is area? What is a rectangle? And if this is a fairly new concept, the concept of area, we probably before this have talked about perimeter being the distance around the outside of a shape, but area is probably a newer concept. Maybe a good time for a post-it note prediction. That would be a great assessment tool there to see, okay, maybe what is their thinking about area. And then also on that post-it note, you could have them say, okay, what's a rectangle? Then underneath, I like this part here, and what I do with the verbs is I underline them. So I circle the nouns, underline the verbs, and so they have to find, they have to tile, they have to show, and they have to multiply. Those are the directions, those are the action steps that you have to take. And so underneath the state talks about supporting concept, whole number side lengths. That's something that's there, okay? And in unpacking the standards, what are the essential skills? It's first that I can find, calculate, determine the area of a rectangle. I can use tiling to find the area. I can show the same answer can be found by tiling as through multiplication, using that array such as a rectangle with two sides of 3 and 2. You would say that the area would be 6 because you kind of have the tiles, but then you can notice the pattern. So we define the nouns. Area, the quantity of expressing two-dimensional size of a defined surface. I'm not sure that I would do that as an educator, to just all of a sudden overburden them with the definition of area, especially if they're uncommon to it, because I know third grade is a big year for determining area of shapes. I know it's not in the second grade standards. Maybe it is through tiling, but nothing specific. They would be more common to know what a rectangle is. They would say it has 4 sides. Quadrilateral, maybe, depending on the level of the group. Parallel sides, a little advanced, not quite there yet. But definitely you want to make sure that to assess what they already know. And then here's your three verbs. But this is where I'd want to stop and focus a little bit. You want to, when you unpack a standard, you also want to make sure that you have a task that matches what you're asking for. And so this one says that the assessment task addresses the essential skill of the standard and element indicator by requiring the students to use tiling to calculate area. The task can be adapted to provide the appropriate level of challenge to students. They can calculate, multiply, count, or they can be provided with choices that they can eye gaze or cut and paste. And so this is a task to show, okay, do I understand the standard? And you notice, and this got me when I was developing this module and this video today, it's not multiple choice. It's not a big elaborate constructed response. We're looking for students to demonstrate their understanding. And if a student understands something, they're not going to need 25 examples on a test where I change numbers around or I use names that are uncommon. It gives them a situation at the top. It provides them with a formula at the top, and then they're figuring out the area. And I love, love, love specifically that they tie the formula up top with the numbers on the bottom. I think that's great. And so that is how you unpack the standards. The same would be true in ELA. Determine the main idea of an informational text. It would be quite the same.